it's very easy to imprison people when you continually make laws that even make the most law-abiding citizen a criminal. That's what happens when you have too many laws in the book. Eventually, the person who is normally a law-abiding citizen will break a law. And it will most likely be unintentional. And they may not even know that they actually broke it until a cop says, hey, did you know you broke this law? And that person will say, no, I didn't. Well, I'm sorry, officer. Well, sorry, can't let you go. It's an arrestable offense and you can go to jail. That's how it happens. That's how people get snared, is because government just decides that we're going to make these laws and then we're going to implement them, even if they're against, if the general public is against them. Now, you can even be considered a criminal just by going about your daily routine, because, the government, they'll just track you. And if you have tracking movements that look a little off, maybe they'll come pay attention to you, knock on your door, ask you all kinds of questions, and before you know it, that parking ticket that you failed to pay 2 years ago, now you're in trouble for it. Look, folks, none of this is this is the type of stuff that's happening daily right now. So the whole notion that Hillary Clinton is out there saying, that we have this injustice in that too many young black men are being, singled out and either killed. Yes, I said kilt, not killed. Are either being killed or jailed. Now, in her first major policy speech since announcing her presidential run, Mrs. Clinton spoke forcefully about the damage done, ticking off the names of the unarmed African-American men who have died at the hands of white police officers in recent months. So what about white males, white men who died at the hands of black police officers? Why don't we tick off those names? Just saying. Why is it always got to be white on black? It's never white on anything else. It's always white on black. So why don't we just tick off the names of the white kids killed by black police officers? Oh, because that wouldn't advance the narrative that the left has. This is all about advancing the narrative. Remember, surface stuff, how it looks. The narrative is how everything looks. Right in front of your face, you can see it. You can see the narrative, but they don't want you to see beyond the narrative into the substance of what they're saying, because if you did, you would see that it's full of BS. Yeah, bouncing shots. No, that's a basketball term, by the way. BS, bouncing shots. Now, from Ferguson to Staten Island to Baltimore, the patterns have become unmistakable and undeniable, she said. Not only as a mother and a grandmother, of girls, white girls, so, she has nothing to worry about, really. If you're going to pay attention to what she says about the status quo and what is happening is a bunch of white cops are killing a bunch of black young men, then she has nothing to worry about for her daughter or granddaughter. Because they are definitely not the class of people that the cops are looking for, because her daughter and granddaughter are white women. Not trying to put race out there, but just saying based on what Hillary Clinton is trying to say. She's trying to sound relevant here. She's trying to put forth this notion that she has relevance, and see, it's all a front. It's facially. There is no depth. There's no, in geometric terms, in geometry, there's something that's called a plane. Now, a plane has length and it has width, but it has no depth. And if you've never studied geometry, then you have absolutely no clue of what I'm saying right now. Now, let me give you an example. A line has length, but it has no width or depth. And you're probably thinking, well, that's impossible. Just hang with me here. Look, geometry is about a bunch of mathematical theorems and postulates. And it's about, you see a circle? Yeah, you can see the circle. Again, it appears to be a circle right in front of you, facially speaking, surface speaking, it's a circle. But is it really a circle? And you're probably saying, well, yeah, it's a circle. You draw this round thing and it's a circle. Well, in geometry, you have to prove it's a circle. And one of the things that you use in order to prove something mathematically are things that are called postulates and theorems. Now, there's a theorem that goes, a plane is like a line, because a line just has length. Now, a dot doesn't have any length, doesn't have any width, and doesn't have any depth. And I know if you've never studied geometry, you're thinking, well, that's illogical. It's not Yes, folks, geometry is probably the most logical math you will ever encounter in your entire life. At first glance, on the surface, it is totally illogical. On the surface. But as you study it and get into it, you fully begin to understand and realize that it's not illogical. So you expand from the dot to the line. From the dot to the line, you go and you add length, infinite length. That's a line. Now, there's another part. It has length, but it has a starting point. Now, a line has no starting point. It has length. In other words, it's infinite on both ends. Now, if you have a point or a dot, which has no width, no length, no depth, that's a dot, a point. And then you draw a line out from that in one direction into infinity. That's called a ray. So now you have length in one direction, but you still have no depth or width. And that's a ray. Now, a line is infinite on both sides of that dot, if you will, that point. So in order to get a plane, you take that line and you add width to infinity. So a plane has length and width, but there's no thickness, no depth. That's basically what everybody sees. There is no depth. They see a plane. And not the kind that you fly. The plane, boss, the plane. No, not that kind of plane. You don't see any depth in these people. There's no depth in her. There is no depth in her words, in her speeches. Because nothing really matters to her. It doesn't ring true for her. She is concerned about the well-being of the American. Really, she doesn't have to worry about a certain segment of the American people. Speaking, because her daughter, if I'm not mistaken, she gave birth to a daughter. So there are three generation of Clinton women right now, and they're all pretty wealthy. Now, didn't Chelsea? I heard somewhere that Chelsea just recently bought a new home in Manhattan, the penthouse apartment or something like that for $10 million. Must be nice. I don't. We're not supposed to think about that kind of thing. Now, not only as a mother and a grandmother, but as a citizen, a human being, my heart breaks for these young men and their families, Mrs. Clinton said. We have to come to terms with some hard truths about race and justice in America. Yeah, the hard truth is that liberal Democrats are not about a colorless or colorblind society. They always want to separate the races because that's how they derive and keep their power and their money is by doing that. And two, these white liberal Democrats are some of the wealthiest people in the country. They have no idea how the rest of us live on a daily basis, especially when, they especially exempt themselves from some of those stupid laws that they foist upon the rest of us and the rest of us have to live by. So, it is what it is, folks, and it ain't what it ain't, and it's probably not what it probably should be. But it's all surface. It's all a plane. There's no depth to it. There's no thickness. There's nothing behind the glass, if you will. It's shallow. It's hollow. There's no meaning. Now, the speech at Columbia University marked the first time Mrs. Clinton has delivered a substantive policy address in a campaign. What policy? What did she say? What ideas did she come up with that were going to fix this evidentiary of a problem? This problem is evident, man. It's evident. Everybody knows what kind of problem we have. Oh, we got this race relation problem and everything. Because everybody knows. Miss Clinton, like everybody else, she know. She know. Well, what are their plans? What are her plans? What are her ideas? What are some of her policy planks on this? I mean, we haven't heard much. And yet the New York Times is telling us, this Mrs. Clinton has given a policy speech. She's done no such thing. She's given a speech, but it's not a policy speech. She's given a speech, but she's not giving any ideas on how to fix the problems she lists in her speech. Well, do people think, yes, they do. I'm answering my own question. Do people honestly think that just because you talk about something means that thing is going to be fixed and handled and turned around and it's going to be beautiful one day? No! Those are just words. Just words. Just speeches. No, you gotta put action behind your words. Action. Action Jackson. You gotta put action behind your words. Because just words alone, which that's all Clinton knows how to do is speak words, isn't going to get you what you want. It isn't going to get you where you want to be. And if you want to have better race relations, just simply running around out there talking about them by being an old, lazy white woman is not going to actually improve race relations, even though you might, pat yourself on the back and think you've done something. You have done diddly squat nothing. Plain and simple. And, some people are saying, wow, Rod, that's kind of blunt. Yeah, it's blunt. I'm sorry. Well, no, I'm not sorry for being blunt. Everybody knows I'm pretty blunt. I'm just going to tell the truth. And if you can't handle the truth, then you probably shouldn't be listening to the show because I'm only going to give you the truth. And the truth is that Mrs. Clinton has no depth. There's nothing to her. She's shallow. She's hollow. She's narrow-minded, and she's not this wonderful, earth-shattering, very brilliant leader that we all could learn so much from. No. Mrs. Clinton is a red herring for something else. Mrs. Clinton is nothing more than a little pawn. She's a little doll that gets, passed around from doll collector to doll collector. You can shake the doll up and the doll will dance and all that kind of stuff. And this is Hillary. Somebody, the good old doll master is shaking her up a little bit and she's doing a little dance and coming out with something that has absolutely no substance behind it, no meaning. And then, of course, you have the left that are just going to fawn all over themselves. Oh, she's coming out with policy. This is her first policy speech since announcing, she's running for the office of president. It's wonderful. She's coming out with a policy speech. And there's not a single idea in there. I'm reading this thing and thinking, okay, the violence has to stop. Yeah, Mrs. Clinton says the violence has to stop. Great. How do we get it to stop? Mrs. Clinton said, but more broadly, let's remember that everyone in every community benefits when there's respect for the law and when everyone in every community is respected by the law. Great. How do we do it? How are you going to do that? How are you going to foster that as president, Mrs. Clinton? She doesn't say, but yet we're told that this is a policy wonk speech. Well, it's a policy not speech because she's an empty suit. She's thin. There's no depth to her. She has no idea. She just knows how to make words look and sound pretty. But there's nothing behind that facade of prettiness. Look, don't fall for this kind of crap. I won't let you as long as you're listening to this show. No, you're not allowed to fall for all the pretty stuff. If you want pretty stuff, go watch ET Entertainment Tonight. If you want pretty, go pick up the February edition of Sports Illustrated. But don't look for pretty stuff when it comes to politicos, politicians, people running for office, because you will get fooled every single time And that's pretty damn ugly.